Hello and welcome to On Your Lane. This is the best place for you if you're an ambitious person who wants to live a significant life. That means you want to make income and make an impact. And so today we're talking about something that really might not directly make you think of success or impact, but it's really powerful. I'm calling this imperfect but truly happy. Because what's the point of having all this success and all this impact when you're empty and you have nobody to share it with and you have no joy and community? And so today I'm going to talk about the keys that I have learned that work in relationships. I am the kind of person who is super driven, and it's so easy to get lost in that journey of success where I am pushing this and pushing that, and therefore relationships fall by the way. And so if you are a person who is really like that, you most likely fail a number of times because that's part of the process where you fail, make a mistake, and you need to learn from it. And I learned in my very first official business that I needed to cultivate my relationships alongside my success. I can't just be this multi-billionaire who is alone. It's not preferable for me. So I started asking myself lifestyle questions. Apart from the money and apart from the impact, what is the lifestyle I want to live? Who is involved in that lifestyle? And so relationships became key to that. I would like to be super successful, but I would like to have my marriage intact. I would like to have my kids. I would like to have wholesome friendships. A circle of people around me who can be honest with me, who can cry and laugh with me, and can just be real in spite of all that others would say. You know how it's easy to find somebody successful or somebody you like, and you'll be like, oh, yay, you're doing good. And they're like, was that okay? Was that a good speech? You're like, yay. And everyone's like, oh my goodness, that was a horrible speech. And I'm like, I really want to have friendships. I really want to have relationships that are wholesome, that complement my life, that we can do life with. You know how sometimes you can say, I want to have rich friends. I'm like, yeah, that's nice, but I also want to make my friends rich. Like, not just rich financially, but in all manner of ways so that we can grow together, my family rich. This whole community that makes me happy, that gives me more joy, that when I lose all my money, they're still with me and they bring so much more meaning in life. And so having that desire, and I hope it's yours too, to have a desire for that. It can be marriage, it can be other relationships, and most of my learnings have come from marriage. And so I'll share from that, but you can apply it for every aspect of life. And so let's get into it. Imperfect but totally happy is something that I have learned. Like for me in my marriage, I just thought it would be great because it will be this way. I had an idea of what that was supposed to be, and I learned real quick that my spouse was not perfect. Neither was I. It took me a little longer to learn that I wasn't perfect because I really thought I do everything right. I know what I'm doing. I read books, so I know what should work. And I learned later on, after a couple more mistakes, that I also was not perfect. But being imperfect does not mean you should not be happy. Being imperfect does not mean that you should just live horribly and not be joyous and not be successful. You can actually find that there's beauty in that imperfection because I don't think deeply, my husband does. And so when we come together, I will think fast, he'll think deeply. It can be annoying, but it complements so beautifully. And you'll see that in many friendships, the people that you have, others are super outgoing, others are a little introverted. So it brings in balance. And most of the times we get annoyed by the differences when they're meant to serve us. So imperfect but totally happy is something that I'm like, I should live by this. I should live by this and celebrate my imperfections because God is bringing people into my life who are perfect in those areas, and I have some perfections that will complement theirs as well. The first thing to look into is what or who is the source of that relationship, because everything starts from somewhere. Sometimes you connect with somebody because of similar interests. Sometimes you connect with people because you hate something. And so for me, for my marriage, for example, ideally I should start with where I'm going. What are my values? What is my life about? And then we connect on that. We shouldn't connect because, he's hot. Those that's what we connect over most of the times. Like, oh, she's pretty. Oh, he drives a nice car. She drives a nice car. She has a nice home. She has a nice job. She speaks nicely. So we connect over that, and that's fine, I think, at the start. But then you should always check the foundation, because as you're getting deeper into the relationship, the foundation will matter much more. And I like this analogy where we say if you're going to build a very tall building, you have to go deeper with the foundation. If you're going to have a shallow building, you need to have, like, you can have a shallow foundation. Okay, so if you're looking for a meaningful, deep relationship that will last, the foundation will matter. And that's something I honestly look back and think it never crossed my mind, but God is good, that even when I was looking for that intentionally, I somehow found it as well. But it took a little more for me to find it. It's different with somebody who's intentionally getting into something, getting into a relationship, and they are aware of what they're looking for. They're aware of their red list stuff. Like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to date a person who's lazy. I'm not going to date a person whose patterns show that they like to quit. I'm not going to date somebody who's arrogant. Like, they're clear. None of the things like, oh, he has to be tall, he has to be short, or she has to be thick and whatever. No, but the character things, the things that last, they are aware of that. They're aware of their vision, and they're aware of the responsibility that a relationship takes, like a marriage takes, and they align themselves. When a person is like that, they'll go further and they'll have much less of a hassle in the relationship, like in the marriage. Like, but for me, I really didn't have that much depth. So I got in, and then the foundation had to start after I got in. And so I praise God that we survived and we worked things out. But I just think that the first 6 years of our lives were really that fight that could have been avoided had we been more intentional and wiser at the start with the foundation. So the foundation has to do with vision, has to do with character. The foundation has to do with values. Those are things that a person lives by. You know, you meet somebody and they don't value family, and you're like, okay, but he's hot, he's rooted, he's quiet, he's ambitious, and you're like, okay. You get in there and you're like, no, he doesn't give me time, or no, she doesn't give me time, no, she doesn't do what she said she would do, or she doesn't show up, or whatever. Character matters much more than the other things that we value, because when things get tough, you will not rely on his height or her thick legs. It's nice to have, but when things get hard, when you have a challenge, you want the smarts, you want the values, you want the commitment, you want the character. And so it's important. What is the source of your relationship? What is the grounding? And if you're a God-fearing person, you're a Christian, saved, don't compromise on that, because I see so many people compromising. And probably in the past I would have done the same, like, but he goes to church, but she's a Christian, but she knows God. But your faith is a very foundational thing. It determines what you do, what you don't do, what you say, what you don't say, what you build, what you don't build. It's a moral compass. It's bigger than that even. It's a principle of life. So if that is compromised, you're setting yourself up for disaster. I have met girls who are like, oh, he drinks too much. And I'm like, when did he start drinking? Oh, he was always drinking. You know, like, that seems like a simple thing, but the principle there is you have seen the character, you have seen the pattern of this person, and you are hoping, you are marrying a hope, and hope doesn't have a deadline. Okay, they could change, or maybe not change, maybe they'll change it at 50. Are you willing to get into that battle? So check those foundations, have clear values, and then know what you're getting into, and have the brevity to say, okay, we don't align. I need to walk away from this. It's gonna hurt, but if I commit to it, it's gonna hurt much more in the future. This makes me think, for a person who has already decided, you say, I'm talking about check the foundation, like you're just starting something, right? What about if you're a person who is already, let's say, in a marriage? What do? You didn't check the foundations, and that it sucks right now. Well, then that's when faith becomes even more important, because that means you have to pray, you have to trust God, you have to acknowledge what you chose and look into the good that you find in that. Because I really believe there could be some good that you can stand on whilst you believe for the better. So you can still work things out. Like for me, I was already in a marriage when I started learning most of the things that I know now. And I'm like, oh, okay, this I'm learning, but I'm already here. So what do? I don't go like, now I have to uproot and start again. No, but what I do then is, all right, what do I have going for me? I have my faith going for me. I have the positive things in my spouse. I have character things that I can work on for me. I have a vision that I can build on as I work and wait on us to come together with one mind as we work on that foundation. So there's always a path back to a good foundation, and God is gracious in that He will guide you back to that. It's just a little harder than starting well. But if you didn't start well, you have to know you have hope to build on that again. But you really need to be intentional, you really need to be patient, and you really need to be prayerful. All right, now that you know the source, then align yourself with that source. What I mean is, most people I meet, including me, would say the source of my marriage is Christ. Then align yourself with Christ. What does Christ say about your marriage? Oh, my values are Christian values. Then listen to those values. Listen to the source. Listen to what you're saying you subscribe to. Most of my struggle was found in the fact that I said I'm a Christian, I live by Christian principles, but none of that was showing up in my actions. None of that was guiding my values. None of that was how I was treating my partner. Right? So if you subscribe to a set end mentality, if you are a Christian, if you are saved, then listen to the person you're saying saved you. Listen to the one, to the God who saved you, and align yourself to that. Because you will need to build on a foundation. You just don't have a good foundation for the sake of a good foundation. And therefore, what are you learning now? Okay, you have a great foundation, you're working on your foundation. What are you learning extra? Do you have any mentors? Do you have time in the Word of God? You have to build on that foundation with extra knowledge and intentional effort. Listen to what you're saying you subscribe to. One thing that I struggled with and really opened my eyes when I understood was do good. Do good is a basic principle of Christianity. I read the verse that says, do not be weary of doing good. In due season, you will reap a harvest if you don't give up. And it's not a marriage verse. It's not a scripture that is telling you anything, but it tells you about relationships. It's talking to you about having good relationships. And it says, not for you to point fingers or to try to fix the other person. It says, do good, because you will reap what you sow. If you don't give up, that is. Because most of us plant the right things, but are not patient enough to cultivate it, to care for it, to keep doing good to the plant, to keep doing good till we see fruit. Most of us will be like, well, I planted the mango tree last month and I'm not eating mangoes today, I'm out. So when as a Christian I subscribe to the notion that I follow Christ and I'm building all my relationships on it, then I will have to really stick to what He has said, like do good. So for me, I sat down and said, oh my goodness, do good. But I want him to know that I'm not a doormat. Do good. So it wasn't perfect. Sometimes I'd fail the test. But over time, it became something that I was aware of, that your default should be to do good. Not just in your marriage, but everywhere else. Even if a person does bad, your default should be do good, because that's who you are. And you don't change who you are to match who you have met. You stay who you are so that you don't compromise what you stand for and bring in guilt and stuff like that. Another thing that I'm going to say is prepare. Prepare. Just prepare for what you're believing for. If you're not in a relationship yet, prepare for what you're trusting for. If you're trusting for somebody who's worthy, they are focused, they're nice, how are you preparing for it? Are you just chilling and thinking, they'll find me here? No, prepare. If you're looking for somebody who's fit, somebody who is well-rounded, prepare. Align yourself with that kind of person. And if you're in a relationship and you're looking for great things to come out of them, prepare. You're like, okay, I want us to build houses, I want us to serve. How are you preparing for that? You might not see it happening now, but you have to be busy doing something that is bringing you closer to it. I meet this in most counseling sessions that I have, where somebody is waiting for the partner to do something for them to do something as well. You get it? Like, we're trying to buy a plot of land, he's not serving, are you serving? No, we're trying to serve together, he doesn't go to church, are you going to church? Like, he doesn't pray, he doesn't wake me up to pray, are you praying? So that's also preparing, right? If you're believing for a godly spouse, become the godly person. If you're believing for a certain level of success, become that now. You can't just be squandering your money and say, oh, I pray God gives me success. You're already mismanaging the 10,000 kwacha you have now and you're praying for 10 million. How are you going to use it? So preparing is a key aspect, because it allows you to be making progress as you're believing or building in that relationship. And also it just allows you to stop pointing fingers at others, because it shows you that there's a role for you to play. right? So if I have to prepare, that means there are some things I have to fix in my life. So I don't just say, he's not doing that, or they're not showing up for this, but I am also contributing by doing my role. And therefore, I can actually come to God in prayer and say, Lord, you have done so much with me, but look at what my partner is doing, and he can help you with that. But most of us come and say, God, intervene. And it's like, have you seen what you do? Have you seen how you speak? Have you seen how you act? I want to work with you first before I can even do the bigger things you're asking for. So preparation is an important aspect. The other thing is you can change. Things can change. Things can improve. That's hope, right? Just knowing that things can change. You can change. It's kind of frustrating to be with somebody who thinks I will never change, I can never change, I am perfect, and I'm doing all the right things. There is no room for improvement in my life. I think I was that kind of person because I thought I read enough, I'm doing all this, I am godly and all that. So you get what you get. I don't cook, so you get what you get. At least you have a good part of me. I don't do some other domesticated stuff. That's just what comes with the package. I would say that. But we can all grow, we can all change. And I think flexibility, adaptability is part of a great relationship. It doesn't mean compromise your values. It doesn't mean be ungodly in whatever you're supposed to do. But it does mean that be considerate. Just because I don't cook doesn't mean that I shouldn't learn to cook, right? I can actually step up and say, okay, for you guys, for our sanity, for our systems, I will be able to cook. Or I'll be able to wake up earlier so I can support my spouse, I can support my children and stuff like that. So it's really important to be able to understand that nobody is fixed. Your intelligence is not fixed. You can say, I'm not good at this, and be surprised after you learn it and be like, well, I actually could do this, right? So be open to that kind of learning. Be open to growth, and also give room to others to go through their own process of growth and change. And where you acknowledge that you can't change somebody, it shows you that you can only change yourself, and you can work with God in prayer to say, okay, change this other person. But you should work with God to grow. You should work with God to fix the issues that you see. You should work with God to learn new things and become more flexible and adaptable to life in your relationship and in your life. On that note, I think that's something that I decided like a couple years ago. I was like, I'm gonna have a growth plan. That's how you can make this practical. You don't just say, I can change, I will grow, but make it practical. Let's say, give me 3 areas where you need to grow in, and then have a growth plan for those areas. Like, what are you gonna do in each one of those areas? Like for me, I knew I had to become more domesticated. And what did that look like? That meant I would stay home more. It doesn't look like much, but I couldn't stay home. I loved my friends. I wanted to be out playing, hanging out, traveling. I wanted to do that. So I told myself I'll stay home more. What that allowed me to do is to see things that could improve in my home. That allowed me to see and be aware of what people were eating and how I could change that. That allowed me to actually just think through things and how I wanted to impact the people who come to my home, my spouse, and all that. So that was like step 1. Step 2, I was gonna go shopping once a week for my groceries, like especially vegetables and stuff, because I loved eating healthy and stuff like that, but I never used to have healthy things. I was like, okay, I need to set out a day where I just go to the market and buy the things. And when the things are available, I can become more domesticated by making more meals that I like and being more creative. That went a long way. So you see, it's like a growth plan. For other people, these things come naturally, but it doesn't for all of us. Other people need to learn to be quieter, to be better listeners. Other people need to learn to be more tidy. Other people need to learn, I don't know what you need to learn, to be more respectful. Whatever it is, you can have a growth plan for that allows you to make step-by-step strides. If you see, I'm not saying just all of a sudden, I'm just gonna cook everything, I'm gonna clean everything. No, it was just like, first step, stay at home more. And that was pretty hard. But when I started doing that, I started seeing the options. I started feeling guided on what I could do and what I could improve. And that went a long way in changing me and growing me and making me more flexible and adaptable to my spouse and to my marriage as a whole. The other thing you have to know, there'll be hindrances, there'll be challenges. Everything worth having means you have to fight for. And sometimes we get surprised that, oh, this is not working, oh, this is hard. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to build you. It's supposed to build your character. How can you build your character if it's not hard? It's like you're going to the gym and you want to build muscle and you're like, it's so painful. I wish there was a faster way of building this muscle without pain. It's not possible. You need to strain that muscle for it to grow. So expect those challenges and distractions and hindrances and prepare for them. And the challenge and the hindrance is not meant to pull people apart. Actually, when you take it like, okay, we are a team and this is a challenge, and you don't fight each other, you grow through it. Right? So refrain from fighting against your partner. Refrain from thinking they're the problem and they're the enemy. And always think, how can we get better through it? How can we solve this? How can I be more respectful, more kind through this challenge? Right? If you expect challenges, you'll be more aware as they come and you not be caught like, oh, what happened? And find yourself, you have destroyed so many things in your reaction to the challenge. So you anticipate it, you expect it, it's part of growth, it's part of life, it's part of the process for making you better, making you more profound. And it's always nice when people testify, oh, we're better here. You're like, oh, couple goals. There are couple goals, a relationship goals. And then you don't realize that when people testify, when people say, I'm victorious, it's because they were in a battle, right? So the battle is never pretty. But those people who fight smart, who fight fair, who fight from a place of love, who are aware of their weaknesses even in those fights, are the ones who can then come out together stronger and say, well, that was a challenging season, but look at us now. Look at us with our crowns. Look at us with these battle marks. We are stronger for it. Look at us with these muscles. We have built that up through the challenges. So yeah, expect them and you will overcome. You will overcome. When you fight right, fight fair, fight with kindness, and just be aware. The last thing I'm going to say is make up your mind. Make up your mind about what you want and then back it up with action. I was counseling a girl the other day and the marriage had gone through a tough time. The husband did her wrong and she was broken, and I understood. And I asked her, what do you want? And she said, I want my marriage to work. I'm like, well, then there's a tough journey ahead of you, a journey of healing, a journey of forgiveness, but move to that path, start that journey, and you will get to the healing, and your marriage can be actually more beautiful after that. If you don't want your marriage, that's another journey. There's also healing that needs to happen. There's also going to be pain on that journey as well. And then when you choose it, be expectant of what you have chosen. So most of the time I see people saying, I want my marriage, I want this thing to work, and their actions are showing that they don't want it to work. It's not to invalidate the pain people go through in their process, but if you're honest with yourself about what you want, honest with yourself about what you hope to happen, then you should be able to bravely and courageously say, I am going to back up what I want with action. And the first step can be forgiveness, or the first step can be walking away. Whatever it is, back it up with action and be consistent in it. Because if you're consistent in it, you get to a place of healing, you get to a place of looking back and testifying, oh, I used to be in that space, now I am not. But you have to be of one mind. You have to be of one mind and be honest with yourself. I see so many people who say, I'm out, when in actual sense they really want to be in, but they're thinking, what will my friends say, what will my family say, and all that. But that doesn't serve anybody. You are going to have a miserable life because you were trying to pose or make up appearances. So make up your mind about what you want. If it's happiness you want, there are things you have to do. If it's success you want, there are things that you have to do. If it's fitness you want, there are things you have to do. If it's happiness and joy and success and prosperity in your marriage and in your relationships that you want, there are things that you have to do. Choose and back up your actions with the right things, and you get the result that you want. I hope this was helpful for you. And if it was, do share it. Share this link to friends and family who need it. And if you have any comments and questions, put them below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already, I don't know what you're waiting for. Like, share, subscribe, so that we can continue to grow together and just be an epic tribe that is achieving success in a different way. I hope to see you next week. And if you're a person who wants to intentionally grow, I have a program that you should be interested in. You should. check it out. It's called The Circle of Greatness. It's in the description below. I hope you check it out. And you can reach out to me and connect on social. My name is Mavis Tandizoganjata. I'm everywhere there doing everything. So see you next week. Bye bye.